Hello, Clint.
It's Tim Brando.
How are you, buddy?
Doing good, Tim, man. We really appreciate this. It's a busy week for you because off of the golf course and into the broadcast booth goes Tim Brando, week zero and on. Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of nuts.
Oh,
Listen,
man.
I'm sorry I got to limit you to 20, but
Yep.
I've got some meetings I've got to get to for my game on Friday. I've got some players to talk to from Central Michigan. We did the coaches a little earlier, but
That's okay, Tim. We are off and
we
running
have
here.
everything moves a day up when you've got a Friday night game.
Yes, as is the case here as we start
Yeah,
college football. And Tim, you just
yeah.
had to put the camera so that we could see the ugly Jayhawk helmet way back there. I know you're going to be high on the Jayhawks, but we're going to skip over them today and just you're back in the booth. You started off last week zero. Is it hard to get ready and get focused as it seems like week zero for college football comes out of nowhere and I'm still in summer mode. I'm still at Beach Boys concerts. And then the next thing you know, we're playing college football.
Well, I understand because that's the first week zero game that Spencer and I've ever done, and I do remember having a passing interest in the Nebraska Northwestern game that was on Fox last year. It turned out to be Northwestern's only win. Maybe that was 2 years ago. I think that was 2 years ago. Now that I think about it, but I remember watching it and thinking, "Gosh, Dublin." They're in Dublin, and it's August. It's not football season, but there I was in San Diego a week early. You go where they tell you to go, and I'm actually glad now that I've already done the game because everybody else is really starting their season this week, and I thought our crew was in pretty much midseason form last week. So I think the comfort level after you've had a few months off, and I had not worked since the Big East tournament in New York in basketball back in March, and I joked I've lost 40 pounds since then. I went on a diet during the summer, so I've lost a
Nice.
couple of pins, so that's good, and my golf game is had something to do with that. I walked the course but I did make a point of getting myself back into the kind of shape I was in when I started in this business,
Excellent.
which was 1985. I've got about another 15 pounds to go, but to drop 40 and to be on my way to 50, 55, that's going to be pretty nice. I'm fitting in old suits now. We should probably put up a graphic at the end of our games on Fox. Tim Brando's wardrobe, courtesy CBS 2009. Because some of those suits with the lapels have actually come back into style, and the ones that I've had recently, they would look like drapes if I had them on. It would be like wearing a tent or something. But I'm really glad to be in better shape, and I'm glad college football is here.
Well, Tim,
Absolutely. We love it here too. And Tim, you're just sending shockwaves around social media talking about it's beneath Nick Saban to not deliver a depth chart. And why do you think that is? It's beneath him. He's too good to deliver us a depth chart.
Well, listen, I'm not. Listen, he's not the only guy that doesn't deliver a depth chart. I get that. And some of the reaction from especially Alabama fans has been that. Don't you know LSU doesn't do well? The point of my critique of Nick was not just about the depth chart, although I do think, and I'll tell you what I think about that in just a minute. But I was very to the point in my tweet yesterday about that. Going into Michigan to do my first game in Ann Arbor about 6 years ago, Harbaugh was the first guy in that league to not do it, and it was kind of a big deal. And I called him on it because I've known Jim since he quarterbacked in '86, his last season at Michigan when he was third for the Heisman. And I know Jim. I just thought it was out of touch and tone deaf not to put out a depth chart. And so, but to his credit, he tweeted me back after I said what I did, and we kind of went round and round a little bit. He circled the wagons by getting the Michigan people on my case so he could be armed with his Twitter posse. It wasn't quite as big as Beyonce's Killer Bees, but it's but anyway, we got into a bit of a Twitter spat. But when I went up to do the game, we faced off mano a mano and talked it out. He made his point. I told him that I guess I understand, but I think that, but to some extent, depth charts, in my view, are necessary for the people that cover the teams. They're particularly necessary when you call the games.
Yes.
I'm going to, today I've been working on my depth chart. That's what it looks like. Two deeps, special teams, both sides.
Your Alabama one would be blank.
You don't just walk into a booth without any preparation. You got to have something to work off of. Now, I'm sure the ESPN people or SEC Network, whoever's carrying the Middle Tennessee State game, they'll likely give them a list of players and probably tell them to embargo it before kickoff, and they'll do that. I'm sure Saban will take care of those guys. But it was the diatribe that he went on that I took issue with. Like preaching to the locals. I know you want a depth chart. Well, you're not going to get one. And here's why you're not going to get one. You're not going to get one because, my guys, my guys, meaning they're sensitive now. My guys, they're affected mentally when they don't see their names on the depth chart. Really? This is big league ball, Nick. And to throw them under the bus as if they are too sensitive to deal with it. I've always felt like Saban had a good handle on the mental aspect of the game, that he could get more out of his players mentally. And I still believe that. I think he probably understands the mindset of the modern day internet athlete better than anybody. But I think Nick is a little out of whack this year, and I think it's because his quarterback room isn't what it's supposed to be. This is all about the quarterback scenario. He's got three guys there, and he doesn't want to stack it in any certain order, so that's why he's not doing it. I mean, who the hell are you trying to kid? We're not that stupid. But apparently he thinks the local media is. And I guess they've earned that over the years by genuflecting at his every whim, cowering to him whenever he decides to be a bully. And I thought he was bullying them. I really did. I said it because I really believe it. And I also think, and I've told people in my industry this, shame on us, because I really believe that there should be standards in college football similar to that of the NFL. In the NFL, you have to put out a depth chart. It has to be out at a certain date. You have to tell us who's injured, who's on the physically unable to perform list. These are all standard operating procedural things that make the NFL what it is. And by the way, those teams, like it or not, have to adhere to those rules. Television brings millions and millions of dollars to college football. So why do you want to handcuff the people that are trying to produce your product and put it out there for the America to consume? We're not your enemy. We're your partners, for crying out loud. That's my point. That's the spirit of the point that I'm trying to make. And I know the guys are going to call the game. They'll get their depth charts done. We always find a way to get what we have to get done. But to use that in such a manner and then try to make the local media feel like they're the ones responsible for there not being a depth chart because they've been badgering him about the quarterback situation. I mean, please, who are you trying to kid? That was my point. I think that when you're the greatest coach of all time, there are standards, and I don't think he lived up to the standard. To whom much is given, much is expected, and much has been given to him, and he's earned it. Yes, but we also expect him to act like the greatest of all time. And I thought yesterday he looked like a sourpuss bully, looking at his underlings that were members of the local media in Tuscaloosa. And I just thought it was about time somebody said something. Apparently, everyone that works in Tuscaloosa and anyone that's credentialed in the SEC is scared blankless of being critical of Nick Saban, because he is the most accomplished and greatest coach of all time. I'm not that way. He's a coach. Okay, there are a lot of more impressive people in the world besides head football coaches. There are. He's a human being just like I am. And I like Nick. We've had a relationship that's very good for many years. But I'm sure there are times when he doesn't like what I say or do. This time I didn't like what he said or what he did. Simple as that.
Hey, we've dealt with it. We were on hand at SEC Media Days in Nashville, and I'm still a little intimidated of Nick. I know you're not, Tim, but I still, somebody asked him what his favorite pump up music to listen to before a game was, and I just slinked down into my chair like, please don't let that have happened. I got to ask you about Eli Drinkwitz here at Mizzou, Tim, because for one, the Tigers start their season on Friday against South Dakota. Eli Drinkwitz also this offseason, he asked us, guys, I thought the transfer portal was closed. For players, yes. For teams, no. The interweaving, the conference realignment, all these things have taken such precedent in college football. Just, I don't know if you were able to catch Drinkwitz's comments, but that was the gist of it. And what you think of him and the Tigers this year. This is a guy that has to win because Missouri's been a 500 program for 4 straight seasons, which is really hard to do in college football.
Yeah. I like Eli a lot, and I know he does need to win. I thought, but I was also critical of him just a few weeks ago when he made the statements he did about, which I thought were somewhat over the top and holier than thou. And he prefaced his statements by saying, okay, I guess I'm going to go there again. But since I am going to go there again, and he started in about, the poor student athlete, no one's consulting them about all this movement and having to get on airplanes and fly all night and play at difficult times and then make their way back. Cry me a river, Eli. I mean, stop. I mean, I was critical of him. I was, and I like the guy. I do. I do think that this year his fan base, particularly, you guys know better than I would, but I think his fan base is tired of the headlines and they want to see some W's over the L's. That's what they want to see. And he spent half the time at the media days talking about how much he was going to stop talking and start delivering. And then the first chance he got when the realignment issue came up, boom, he went there and he just couldn't help himself. But that's who he is. I mean, he's a candid, forthright guy. And like I said, for the most part, I really enjoy that in him. I think coaches all need to be themselves. But Drinkwitz to me is a guy that really knows the game, but his persona is so charismatic and so effervescent in a lot of ways that I think people lose sight of the fact, particularly those that hear it all the time, and that's the fan base in and around Columbia, Missouri. They're like, we've heard all this before. We've heard this. Your material is not new to us. It may be new to the national guys, but it's not new to us. And so it looks like he's telling himself now to chill and go out and win some football games. Listen, the schedule is not it's not easy. Missouri's got a tough schedule. I think South Carolina does too. A lot of those teams in the East, like South Carolina, Missouri, have high expectations this year. Shane Beamer's had a lot of upset wins. Maybe got a little bit ahead of schedule last year. I don't know that they can do that this season because I think his schedule is that much more difficult. But I do think Missouri is an under-the-radar team with all the players he has returning, and the schedule shapes up to be really good. I think that, look, South Dakota, the Jackrabbits, that's not a walkover. They're good. They've been good at the FCS level for quite a while. Then that Kansas State game comes up. And
that's your Big 12 champion. You got them in your top 10.
The Big 12, yeah, I do. I think, and if I'm wrong about Kansas State, it'll be proven when they play Missouri. If Missouri beats them, then he could get on a bit of a roll here going into conference play. And I've oftentimes said in situations like that, when you get an unexpected win or you beat a favorite opponent, even if that favorite opponent is in your stadium, I don't know what the spread is now. Hell, it might even be favored. I'm not sure. In my mind, I don't think they're as good as Kansas State. I don't. But is it a winnable game? Yeah, it is. And if they get it, then I think they could maybe win another game that maybe people don't anticipate.
LSU?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that certainly comes into play if you can beat Kansas State. No question. And obviously a lot can happen to LSU between now and the time that game is played. But can they win 8 games? Yeah, they can win 8 games. You tell me, is that the magic number? Is that what he has to have to keep his job?
I don't think it's 8, but I think 7.
7 and a bowl win to get to 8. Okay, I'm down with that. I think in that division with Georgia and Tennessee, and the thought process that the battle is for third between Kentucky, South Carolina, and Missouri. Finishing third probably wouldn't be all that bad. Frankly, I think Tennessee's overrated.
Yeah.
And I think that Kentucky is underrated. I think Kentucky's got a schedule that really puts them in the best position to not only finish with a good record, but also be good enough to finish second, because I think they're capable of beating Tennessee. I don't think Milton is the goods. I don't think he's Hendon Hooker at all.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Tim. And just a quick couple games I want to talk to you about that are interesting to me. Coach Prime, Colorado, they face off at TCU. He said, this isn't a wait and see here at Colorado. We're coming right now. Is that just false bravado? And then LSU, FSU, kind of that rematch. LSU got the block extra points, so they lost to FSU. Are they going to come out on top this time?
Well, I mean, they lost their best defensive end thanks to the NCAA. Are you guys about as tired of that stuff as I am?
Yeah.
Man, it's like they're just doing anything that they can do to get in the way and screw the so-called student athlete. I'm really tired of hearing that term, frankly. I was actually throwing stuff at the television set when Eli used it when talking about realignment. But I mean, LSU, in my opinion, will win the game with Florida State because Jaden Daniels is a Heisman contender, and he's really good. And he's playing at a much higher level now than he was when you remember him at the end of last year. I know Florida State is near home, and I know Mike Norvell's done a nice job. LSU can afford to lose the game and still be a contender nationally. I don't know that Florida State can. There's more pressure on Florida State to beat an opponent like LSU, an SEC team that's a top 10 foe early. But I think that, when I look at games like that, that are played at neutral sites, last year, LSU bumbled and stumbled around for 3 quarters, really had no business being in the game, and hell, they almost won it. The blocked extra point cost them. They wouldn't have deserved to win the game even if they had won it in overtime, but they should have gotten to overtime. And Daniels was still learning things now. I think that that LSU will pull it out. And you mentioned Prime. There is no such thing as false bravado with Deion Sanders. It's just bravado. And plenty of it. I know he believes in what he's saying. I don't know if you saw the conversation he had with Joel Klatt, but I thought it was like watching the Eagles unplugged, playing their greatest hits. It was Deion's greatest hits unplugged with Joel Klatt. He believes everything. He's evangelical in the sense that he is attacking coaching college football as though it were a pulpit, and that he is really changing lives, taking young men that have a lot of ability, yes, but don't have vision, and he's creating vision for them. All strengths of his. I've known Deion since he was a player at Florida State. And he much like Bosworth, no one merchandised themselves any better than Deion Sanders and Brian Bosworth. And frankly, Deion stole some of Boz's stuff. He did. Now, he went on to have a better all-around NFL career than Brian, but Brian was no slouch. It's not like he laid an egg. He just got hurt and was in a position that you were probably going to have fewer years than Deion Sanders would have. Okay. But Deion is, he's a guy that answers every bell, always comes out winning, regardless of the circumstances. No one thought he would do at Jackson State what he did as quickly as he did. No one thought going even further back when he went to the Falcons that he would turn them into a playoff team, and he did. No one thought that he could play for the Braves in the World Series while he was playing for the Falcons, and he did. When he was at Florida State, I'll never forget, he was the first player in the history of sport in college athletics to sign a $1 million contract with George Steinbrenner and the New York Yankees. Yep. Get paid, all right, and still play college football, okay, because he was an amateur in football. But he got paid as a baseball player. And when we were doing the original game day, we called Florida State up and we asked them to get Deion to do a little thing for us. And he came in with a Trans Am, a black Trans Am that looked just like Burt Reynolds' original Trans Am and Smokey and the Bandit. He's got his chains working, big prime thing going. Comes up out of the T-tops down with his shades on, and he says, "Tim Brando, how you likes me now?"
Wow.
He said, "You watching Game Day, baby, Timmy B." And I was like, I mean, they asked him to do it for us, and he gave us, the performance of a lifetime. When the light's on, and when the speculation is especially when there's questions about whether he can get it done or not, he always answers. He always answers the bell. Now, look, they don't have any depth, but they've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of skill position talent. I suspect that they will win somewhere between 4 to 6 games. And that would surprise, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anything 4 or beyond has got to be considered a Herculean success, in my view. The problem he's going to have isn't with the skill people, but it is going to be up front, and especially because he doesn't have depth. He hasn't had, he's replaced all but I think it's 11 guys that are back from last year. And he got 5 stars, 4 stars, lots of guys that Colorado's never been able to get in the past. But once some guys get banged up, the drop-off is pretty significant. So he's going to need to stay healthy, especially early. But will he get it done? I think he absolutely will. TCU wins. TCU may not cover. How about that? I don't know what the number is. Is it like 20 and a half, something like that?
It was above. It was double digit. It was above 19.
Above 20 at 19 or 20. Yeah. I think they'll stay within shouting distance with some big plays, and they'll serve notice that they're going to win some games down the road.
Tim, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. We're so ready for college football, and it's not college football until we hear your voice here at Starcade Media. We can't thank you enough. Excited to see where all things go. I know your partners at Fox have to be excited. Not only did you outrate the college football presentation on ESPN last year, but you're adding more TVs, more teams. It's going to be great, and we'll get into all that as the year goes on. Tim, we'll have to have you back as when you have like a normal Saturday schedule. We could have more time with you. We'll do it.
And generally Tuesdays or Mondays are generally pretty good.
Perfect.
So we'll get it worked out. And just so your audience knows, a week from Saturday, Spencer and I are at SC. We'll see Caleb Trojans against Stanford. And then the week after that, we'll get that TCU team that Deion's going up against at Houston in their Big 12 opener against the Cougs in Houston. So those games, both of those games will be on Big Fox. The one on Friday night is on FS1 at 7:00.
Always a pleasure, Tim. Can't wait. You're the best. The voice of college football, in my opinion. We'll catch up again soon. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, fellas. Good to be with you, Clint.
Minute and a half.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not going to even be able to get him out of here. It's just going to like D Snyder end.
Yeah. Just what happened? Like you talk too much, Tim. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's so hard. Like, I mean, with Tim, like you really got to just be like extremely, like have like two really important questions. And then
yeah,
that's all you can really. Yeah. So, well, we're going to have to do our ins and outs later after Arrowhead Allies or something, because we just don't have enough time here. You see.
You want to recreate one and just do it now? Like,
okay.
Get out of the way. Show.
Do you want to just go to StreamYard?
Yeah, that's fine.